Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Monday Night Live. This is Sandi at Suburban Homesteader Wyoming, Arizona, and I hope you had a fabulous Mother's Day yesterday. Maybe you're not a mom, but you called your mom. You called it somebody that you knew was a mom, and you just had a great day. Um, and I thought tonight's topic is new things that are happening at Suburban Homesteader Wyoming, Arizona. And so we're going to talk about that. But let's say hi to some people. Todd put a post for Happy Mother's Day. Julie is in here. Teresa is in here. Hello, Teresa. And Angie are in here. Both of those girls are members. So thanks so much for stopping by. And I had a busy day today. I did my very first podcast last night. And so that is one of the new things at Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona. And Ann is here. Hi, Ann. How are ya? Ann has a live Tuesday mornings. It's pretty sure it's 9 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, and 12 o'clock on the East Coast. Is that right, Ann? If it is not, type it in the chat so that we can do that. And Charmaine is here. I am watching a movie with my honey. That is so sweet. Oh, you watched the podcast. Yay. Now on YouTube, you can actually see me do the podcast. And, let me do that. It's 11 o'clock Eastern, so that's 9 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. And so I did my first podcast last night. And Carol, hi Carol, says 6, but it's 5. 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, because before, when I was in Arizona, it would have been 5 o'clock. But it's 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time because that's what Wyoming is. So it's still Pacific time, which would be Arizona right now. It is 5 o'clock. Todd, hello. He's saying hi to Angie and Happy Mother's Day. Yeah, it was. And thanks for the congratulations on the podcast. I'm going to do every Sunday. It'll be out. And it's all about fruits and vegetables. It'll run about 20 minutes. And anything and everything I know about those vegetables, from growing, history, what you can do with those vegetables. And so I just thought it would be an interesting topic. We're right in the springtime. We're starting to plant. Depending on where you live, if you live in the South, you've already had your stuff in the gardens for a while now. But what are you going to do after they're ready to harvest? And so I just thought doing a podcast would be real interesting. And so I'm going to figure out how you do it. So after you've already uploaded the podcast, how I do it so it goes on Apple and Spotify and all those things. So that's one of my goals this week, to figure that all out. I have a Spotify account, and so I just have to play with that a little bit and figure out how to do that. And you can upload podcasts onto Google. I did some research about that today. And so it should be fun. And so if you have questions about vegetables, make sure you send them to me, and that way I can answer them when we're talking about that vegetable or fruit in the podcast. And I think it'll just be something that'll be real fun and interesting. And a lot of times people can listen, but they can't watch a video because they're doing other things. And so that's why podcasts are just awesome. Charmaine, you have a fun time watching a movie. Tried to find the podcast after an iHeart, but it didn't show. Along the top, it'll say podcast, and so you can always watch it that way. But if you're on YouTube, you can watch it as a video too. Oh, Tucson is Mountain Standard Time. Maybe I'm backwards on how that switched. But anyway, it's going to be 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time on Monday nights. Oh, good. See? You type in channel, and it'll pop up your channel. That's right. Thank you very much for doing that for us. So that anybody else who has a channel, just type it in. Just type channel, and Nightbot will find it for you. And that way people can just click the link and go to your channel too. It just makes it easier, and you don't have to have people finding your link and then typing it. So I just think that's better. It says Tucson should be on Pacific time now. Okay. Because I thought all of Arizona switched, but I could be wrong. See, Ann wrote channel, and this is Ann's channel. And remember, tomorrow morning, she has her regular live stream, and it's always so fun. And Tina Ladybug is here. Hey, Tina, how are ya? So what's new with Suburban Homesteader Wyoming? We've been back for about 2.5 weeks from Arizona. Charmaine, have a great time. And so it's been very busy because I was in an art show this past weekend. And I just had to paint. So I ended up selling one painting, 3 necklaces. And then I didn't realize I also sold 2 sets of earrings. And so I was a little excited about that. Rigs Abroad, SMTV. Hello, how are you? I love it when people put the word channel in and then it pops it up. So it makes it so that you can just go check them out too. That's part of the fun of doing a live stream, is watching all the channels and all the things that everybody's talking to each other over in the chat. So my big thing is the new podcast. Every Sunday, it'll come out. Sunday night, it'll pop up. And I did carrots this time, all about carrots. So this is the intro to it. It is one of those vegetables that everybody knows what they are. They're sold all over the world. In fact, worldwide, they're the 2nd most popular vegetable in the entire world. In the United States, it's 4th. This is Sandi at Suburban Homesteader. So that kind of gives you the idea of how that podcast started. Now, in the chat, I was asked, what was the number 1 vegetable in the world? Because I did not say. It's actually potatoes. People buy more potatoes across the world than any other vegetable, which I can totally understand, because you have regular, you boil them, you bake them, you fry them, you get them at restaurants, it's just part of meals. And so I could really see that potatoes were the number 1 vegetable in the entire world. And that counts all potatoes, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, purple potatoes, Yukon Golds, whatever kind of potato that you have. So now, am I going to do a podcast on potatoes? I am, but not quite yet. I'm doing the Trinity of cooking. So we did carrots yesterday. Then we're going to do onions, and it's going to be called Ode to an Onion. And then we are going to do celery. Then potatoes come. So potatoes are a few weeks in the future. And Diane is here. Hello. And it is it's just a new addition to Suburban Homesteader Wyoming. And I call the podcast Garden Like an Old Woman, if you can. People are always saying, how can I garden so much? Well, I'm going to do a video about why you should garden and how much easier it is when you're retired to garden. And I've done some videos on how good it is for you to do gardening when you retire. And we're just going to go into a little more in depth on physically what it does to you when you garden. And so that's going to be kind of fun. This week, we're going to do videos on planting mint, because if you're one of the members, you saw my video that I do Monday mornings for all the members. And I talked about the mint plants. I had a gift certificate, and I was wanting to get like a statue or something, but they were just like way out of my price range, even with the gift card. And so a friend of mine has these great big orange tubs, and she's going to give me some of those. And I am going to be planting the mints in there. And I got 12 different kinds of mints. And then I'm going to use some of that mint when we do an herb festival in August with the Master Gardeners. So it should be really, really interesting. And you'll get to learn all about these different mints, which are amazing, and what you can do with them. And I will like it. It is great exercise. Being in the garden is great exercise. You get the sun, fresh air. It's good for your hands to touch the soil. And so that's goes right into what Angie says, that soil is antidepressant. Tina says, have you ever had butter potatoes? They are delicious. Now I put butter on my potatoes, but I don't know if I've ever had butter potatoes. I'm going to have to do some research on that. I have potatoes planted, and I went over to the community garden because we have had 4 days, about 4.5 days of rain. So I'm going to show you. Now I only have a few things planted at the community garden so far, but I'm going to show you a little clip. So these are the sunflowers that I got they're giant sunflower seeds. You can see some thistles growing in there. I haven't worked on any of that part yet. And then down here, I put these in before we had the rainstorm. And those, I have squashes and pumpkins in these different ones. Some of them are melons. They're going to climb some of the fences, some of them. But what I like to do is these are walls of water. And so they have the individual cells that you fill up with water. So I always take a small tomato cage, turn it upside down. Then I put a stake in there and I kind of go in and out of the tomato cage so that it really holds it if the wind comes up. Because during our rainstorm, it was so incredibly windy on a couple of the days that I was afraid that those would have toppled over. But they were all up. They were all fine. There were a couple branches broken on the tomatoes. And I would guess that was probably just because the 2 tomato plants I planted over there already were fairly large. And I think it was probably just the wind moving that back and forth that broke those 2 branches. But just trim those up and they're just perfectly fine. You buy them from Brookshires. Not sure how they grow them. I will do some Googling on that. And that'll be interesting. Do you really want to plant mint? It just kind of happens. Well, I have mint in my yard already. I have spearmint, peppermint, orange mint, and apple mint. And I have them in different places. Now, mint can spread. And that's why I'm going to use these great big tubs that my friend has. And it kind of contains it. And as long as I don't let it go to seed, they will stay within those containers. And mint is very easy to propagate. And so I want to do some videos on that, on growing it, what to do with it. But mostly I got it. One, it's a perennial, so that I'll have it year after year. But also because we have an herb fest in August, and that's what I want to do with the herb fest is things about mint and how to cook with it and how to make teas with it, and just a ton of things that I'm going to do. Oh, look here. Lynn is here listening while I'm driving home. Lynn, did you get those pumpkin seeds planted? She was one of the winners of the giant pumpkin seeds. And so living where she lives, I think that pumpkin could just get huge and her grandkids are going to have so much fun. So I'm totally excited about seeing pictures of the giant pumpkin. Now, I moved my giant pumpkins to a different shelf downstairs because I needed more room. They're just getting way too big. But I'm not quite ready. I mean, I do have one giant pumpkin planted over there, but that big area that I hadn't done anything yet, where the thistles were starting to grow, that's where I'm going to grow those giant pumpkins. And so I want to wait just a little bit longer. Not that I don't have more walls of water, because I do, but I just want it to be, the soil to be really warm around there. And they're perfectly okay. I'm just going to repot them to give them a little more soil and bulk and just let them grow until I'm ready. to plant them. We have mint growing on our side yard. It comes back year after year. I think it wards off mosquitoes down here in Florida too. That's what some people have told me too, that they think that it helps with mosquitoes and other bugs. I have spearmint along our driveway, and it's got a little rock shelf, and then the mint goes right along that edge, and it sometimes brings itself out in between the rocks. So when you're walking up to the house, almost always your hand touches it or your legs brush against that. And that smell of mint is just so fantastic. And it reminds me of my grandmother, because my Grandma Stevens, she loved making mint jelly. And I've made it lots and lots of times. And so I'm excited about making jellies with these different flavors of mints too, because it will be a little bit different. You know, a spearmint mint tastes and smells different than an orange or an apple or a grapefruit or a lime mint. So I'm excited about that. And Anne is here. Hi, Anne. I hope you had a fabulous Mother's Day. I'm sure those girls did special things for you. So I'm working on the podcast. For a while, I gave lots of giveaways, and I haven't done very many giveaways lately. So I'm going to do a video on my different seed packets that I have. I'm going to give an entire set away of all the different seed packets that I have. And now I know all of these will grow in the north. I would assume that most of them will grow in the south too, though some things you may want to grow starting in October instead of through the heat of the summer. And so you can have 2 gardens like I do when I go to Arizona. Nightbot is popping in all of the different members. And so that's what you'll see there. And it just gives their links so that you can pop over and see them too. Now, always I like to do some kind of vegetable or fruit or something that I haven't ever grown before. And so this year, it's different kinds of melons. I mean, some of them are from Thailand. I've grown Thai pumpkins before, but I don't think I've ever grown Thai melons before. And so different kinds of melons I'm going to grow this year. And so I think you should always try to grow something you never grew before. And I got my shelves up here, I got my shelves downstairs, and everything's growing. Some things take a little bit longer, and I am going to plant flowers up tomorrow. Oh, Sarah says hi. Please tell her hi. And I hope she's doing good. I know she's so busy all the time, but I hope she is having a good day, good week. And I'm going to do Friday Night Live, Late Night with Nana. That is at 8 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. I know it's late for you guys on the East Coast, but you don't have to stay up late. You can always watch it the next day, you know. There's lots of times that I watch a live later because you're busy. And so I just don't get it. I don't get to do it. And can you see those pictures? Look at that little bumblebee. It's just one of my little paintings I did the other day. I like it. And then I got a little frog. Who doesn't like frogs? I do. I love it. Oh, Lynn says, don't be texting when you're driving. She says, we haven't planted the pumpkin seeds yet, but I have them on the kitchen table. We will get to them planted on Sunday. You can soak them the night before. I don't really think pumpkin seeds really need to get soaked. I know some people do. I just don't think you really need to. There are certain seeds that I always soak, but pumpkins always sprout so fast. And so I rarely soak those, or squash seeds. I rarely soak those. Thank you very much, Anne and Teresa. Diane, thank you. it's fun to paint things that we know too. I mean, I have my cactus, my palm trees, all that stuff. This is a fused glass piece up over here. It's all made out of glass. I did it in my kiln, and it's a hacienda. It's kind of hard to tell because it's farther away. So it is exciting. Angie says, I'm thinking about putting my garden under the clothesline, then utilize the line to grow vertically. I think it's a fabulous idea, because why not? Hook it onto the wires on the clothesline, and you can grow all kinds of stuff. John wants me to ask if ladybugs are good for plants. Ladybugs are extremely good for plants, especially their larvae. If you have any kind of aphids, ladybug larvae, which kind of look like aliens, they're just like eating machines. I mean, regular ladybugs or ladybirds, if you are in England, well, they'll eat aphids, but the larvae, which is larger than what the adult ends up being, are just eating machines. They will eat and eat and eat and eat. So they're very good, and they eat other things that are they're predatory. They're going to eat bugs. When you have ladybugs, you should always have some kind of water source for them. Even if it's a saucer with rocks in it, and so that they can land and they won't drown. But they need some kind of water source, or they will fly to the next yard where they can find it. Now, if you live someplace where it's very humid, there's always water under leaves and things like that. But I live someplace where it's very dry. And so I always have to have water sources for any of my pollinators, all my ladybugs, my lacewings, things like that. You want to make sure that you have a source for them. And make sure that if it isn't evaporating really fast, that you're changing that water so it's always clean water for them. One of the tricks about ladybugs, because people order them, right? So you get a container of thousands of ladybugs, and you put them out in your yard, and they're there for a couple of days, and it's like, where are the ladybugs? You see some of them, but you had thousands in that container. Why is it that they go away? So there's tricks. So like when you're going to order those ladybugs, before they come, what you want to do is make a kind of a teepee out of sticks. Have a little water source in there. You could have a piece of orange, a piece of banana in there. And you don't put your ladybugs out until it gets dark. And so you want to put your ladybugs in that little teepee area, because they won't fly anyplace when it's dark. And so by morning time, it's like, oh, we have food, we have water here, it's kind of sheltered, and you will have much more ladybugs hang around. And then you'll have ladybugs for years and years. I'm always surprised at how many ladybugs that we have, it's a good thing, because ladybugs are great for plants. Always great for plants. And they're fun to watch. They're fun to see that whole cycle that they do. Lynn says, thanks, you betcha. And so it's just one of those things that you want to make your yard, your gardens, be it vegetables or flowers, you want them to be very diverse, so that a lot of insects come to it. Now, in my podcast, I talked about the flower of a carrot. The flower of a carrot is one of the best pollinator-friendly plants on the planet. Because the way those little flowers, it looks very much like a Queen Anne's lace, are so good for tiny native insects. Because a lot of times the flowers that we buy from a nursery, they're too large, and those little insects, those little native bees, can't get the nectar that they need. And so you need to have a diversity in flowers and plants so that it brings more pollinators into your yard. It's just something to do. And they're very beautiful. Side note, when you have carrots that go to seed. So it makes this umbrella flower, right? And it has all these little flowers, makes those seeds. Well, if you don't clip that off eventually, you will have seeds that scatter. And so down in Arizona, I have carrots that grow all over the place. They grow along the house, they grow in the flower beds, but I'm okay with that. And the main carrot area that I just leave in the ground sends up shoots all the time because it makes new carrots and it sends up shoots, and I don't cut those off because I'm okay with them scattering carrots wherever. And I just pull them up when I want them. But it's a beautiful plant. And a lot of times we don't realize when we're growing our vegetables how we can use all of those vegetables. Because like the carrot, most of the time we just eat the carrot part. We don't eat the leaves. We don't eat the flowers. You can actually eat carrot seeds. You can add them to soups, into meat recipes, and you can actually press and get the oils out of the seeds, and people use them in perfumes. So there's a lot of things that you can do with your vegetables. I always tell people about radishes. Most people just eat the radish. Why don't we eat the leaves of the radish? Why don't we eat the flowers, the seed pods? In fact, a lot of times when people can't eat radishes, the actual radish, when it makes the flower and makes that seed pod, you can eat the seed pod and it doesn't upset your stomach like the regular radish does. And you can pickle those, you can eat them raw. I eat them raw in the garden all the time. I always let some of them go to seed so that it makes those pods because I like them. But you can add them to salads, you can add them to stir fries. Why not use all of the plant? When you're growing cabbages, most of the time we just want that cabbage in the center. All of those leaves around the outside are good to eat. A lot of times I'll just break those off, chop them up, and put them in the freezer, or I'll dehydrate them. And then you always have that cabbage that you can add to soups and casseroles. And if you save the leaves on a red cabbage, they're purplish really. The nice thing about it is that those outside leaves, when you dehydrate them, the starches turn to sugars, and it's like eating candy. So that's something to do. Tastes just like the leaves. See, that is like a lot of things. Arugula flowers taste just like the leaves. And a lot of plants, the flowers will taste like the leaves. Like the flowers on a carrot, you can make a light jelly where you can make a jam with the actual carrot. So there's a lot of things that we in the United States don't use, and we just throw into our compost pile or we throw it in the trash, where we could actually be feeding ourselves with a lot of nutrients. One of the things that I talked about in my podcast was that usually if you consume a vegetable raw, you get more nutrition. A carrot is not one of those things. If you eat a carrot, you're only getting 4% of the beta carotene. If you cook that carrot, steam it or boil it, whatever you're going to do, roast it, you're going to get 40% beta carotene. It does a chemical reaction when it gets cooked. So you just have to know your vegetables. And so that's one of those things with the podcast I'm going to do. I want it to be that people are interested in wanting to do, and even if they don't grow that vegetable this year, if they listen to the podcast, perhaps they will want to grow them next year. Or if you have 2 seasons, you can grow them in the fall. If you live in a very temperate climate, a lot of times you can plant in the fall It grows a little bit and then it kind of stops in the wintertime. And then when early spring, it starts growing again. So it just depends on where you live. But we are already at 30 minutes. The Vineyard Chicks have a live stream in a half an hour. Monday nights, they're always singing. They're playing the piano, guitars, they're always singing. So make sure you stop in and see them. And remember, podcast next week is Ode to an Onion. But everybody, I hope you look forward to the videos this week, and I will see you next time. I have to go fix Joe's supper. That's right. He's probably hungry. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time.